Ooh, that's a good announcement. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming today. It's June 21st, 2021. This is a meeting of the SIG Network Policy API subgroup of SIG Network. Remember, this is a recorded meeting, so please be nice to each other and let's have a good, productive day today. So I don't really have anything on the agenda to really talk about today. So feel free to add as we kind of run through this first new item. I did want to get a shout out. Looks like we have a new attendee today, Josh Bell. If you want to say a few words, feel free. If not, no worries. While you're here, why you're interested.
Sure, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I've actually been to a couple of the other network SIG groups and subgroups, and so I'm a network engineer myself, working for an oil and gas company. And as we've been adopting more and more Kubernetes strategies around here, I've had the opportunity to go to KubeCon, stuff like that, and get to know more and more folks in the community. So just kind of plugging in, trying to get caught up on some of these newer things that are coming in, and looking at issues that are in the bucket that may be easier to pick up, that I can maybe jump in and do some triage on if there's anything. So figured I'd give it a shot today, hop in here and see what's happening.
Great, awesome. Well, thanks for stopping by, and there's definitely places for you to get involved already if you want to check some stuff out. So that's awesome. Cool. So I want to rewind. Last week, in the agenda, there's the link for the Network Policy V2 user stories, part of the Network Policy API repo, and we kind of were discussing that last week and wanted to iron out some more information about construction going on, more information about the personas for each user story for Network Policy V2. So Prasad has made a document, revolving around this and around some of the other V2 concepts. So it'd be great if we could all, get a chance to check that out, comment where needed, and it'll be a good piece of work alongside the V2 work. And then one day, once this document is kind of stabilized, we can look at moving it into repo as a README. So yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything else about that, Prasad.
Yeah, I think Andrew, that's a good summary. I gave all of us edit permissions. Please go ahead and edit it, and and feel free to comment. And I will try to coordinate with you and try to get answers. I already talked to Per and some time back, and with you, Andrew. Yeah, so let's keep it going as a live document. Then as you said, once everybody agrees, then we can present it to the bigger audience.
Great, sounds good to me. So we just all need to keep iterating on that. I know it's sometimes a slow process. I know for me, like last week, stuff got in the way and I wanted to do some review on V2 and never got around to it. So for newer people.
Is this the document that's on the agenda today?
Yes.
Okay, I will work on it tomorrow.
Cool, that'd be awesome. And for newer people to the group too, just a little background. I'll share my screen really quick. What we're doing in our new repo, which is Network Policy API under Kubernetes SIGs, is trying to document user stories for V2 and also CNP, Cluster Network Policy. So open to review on those. Cluster Network Policy have been around for a while, so we're just hopefully finishing up review and getting review from some main SIG network players soon. And for V2, that's brand new, so just starting our first round of review there. So on CMP, Abhishek, is there anything you want to bring up this week around CMP? I know we're kind of just waiting on review from other members of SIG Network still.
Yeah, I think I DM'd a few folks today regarding additional reviews, and we also look forward to the external network discussion that Tim Hawkin has put on agenda for this week's SIG network. And that's something that also affects CNP. And hopefully we can get some conclusion, at least on that aspect, and then we can include that in the CNP doc. But beyond that, there's not been much because we haven't yet gotten any new feedback.
Yeah, I pinged Jan Winship today. I haven't heard anything back, so hopefully I can get him to check this out this week.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, good step in the right direction. Cool. Yeah, no worries. Okay, what else do I have for today? There was, well, I guess they're not here. There was some effort we discussed a few weeks ago to bring the network policy recipes repo over to, let me pull it up so you actually know what I'm talking about.
Which one? The Ahmed one?
Yeah. Another member of Google said or suggested that, and I thought it would be a good idea. So I don't know what happened there. I'm going to put it on the agenda again. So if someone looks.
Yeah. In the past, Ahmed put on Twitter that he wanted to donate this. So me and Jay, we tried to reach him, but we got no answer. It was like, I guess, 5 months ago. We can probably ping him on Slack in our channel, because usually he's there as well, and say, hey, we want to take the ownership of this. If you want to donate, you say that on Peso. Do you want to still to donate this? And we have this Kubernetes-SIGs, and we can do some curation here as well, and some more folks reviewing. So
Cool.
One thing though is that do we have specific ideas for enhancing it? Because he might say it's already complete, and you can just put a pointer in the network policy API repo to saying this.
There is no import, for example.
Sorry, what?
Endport got merged. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but Endport one was merged. The namespace by name from J is not there. So
I think it'd be nice to wrap this and then be able to continue to add to it as we see.
Yeah. Anyway, he was the one that suggested on Best to donate this. So we can ask him again and say, hey, are you still willing to donate this, or do you just want us to point to your repo? Because any of them, it's great. The thing is that we need to have some place we decentralize it, right?
Yeah.
We also have the eBPF, the Cilium one, which is also a repo. So I think it would be great if we have like all the efforts in one place as well. But
yeah, and also to be able to continue to develop them, right, as things are changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I would propose to add
not changing.
Yeah, I would propose to add a new directory like samples here where we have like subdirectories for each different APIs that we're trying to propose, and the one which is already present, which is the V1 network policy. And then most of Amit's samples and recipes can be merged into the V1 network policy.
I mean, and also into the README or somewhere, we can always add in the contributors that has made up a large part of what's there.
Yeah, correct. I think we should give credit where it's due.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So that's a small thing, but I think as we contribute more to this repo, we should also figure out what we want to show on the main page and kind of spice up the README and just make it a little prettier since we're the owners of this. So it's kind of in our hands. And as we keep moving forward, like if there's any other network policy tools that want to be hosted upstream, that could be a cool place for it. So.
On that note, since Josh mentioned that he's a practitioner, I mean, Josh, do you have some real world implementation examples to share about how you might be using network policy in your real world deployments? Or are you not at that stage yet?
So we are not actually at that stage, and that's actually part of why I'm trying to engage a little bit here, is to bring that knowledge in. So actually, I'm just pulled up the site while we're talking here, and I love it. I haven't seen this. I hadn't seen this recipes repo before, so I actually can't wait to show my team, because there's a bit of stuff in here that we could use. So as we go through it, these may not all fit, but if there are additional ones and things like that, I can definitely bring them up, because those could be enhancements that we could throw back at it and continue to grow that list out.
Cool. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. I mean, I think that's something people are constantly asking for, is like recipes and examples. And this is the best one I've seen. And if we could start, collecting those in an upstream centric manner, I think that'd be awesome. Like real use cases. So great. Thanks for coming. So that's all I have for today. Does anyone have some other stuff they want to talk about, or do we want to give the time back so we can get to maybe poking around at the V2 user stories, or poking other people for review on cluster network policy, or checking out the new doc Prasad and Nadeem have put up for us?
Well, I need to go to the market, so.
Well, that's
I'm really short on time today too, so
Is that?
That's a good reason, I think, Ricardo.
Yeah.
We could say meeting ended early due to Ricardo's market trip.
Exactly.
Well, if there's no objections, going once, going twice.
Sorry to jump in there, Andrew, but
No, you're good.
maybe I'll ask it offline. I don't know, but I have a question about the CAP 2136, and I want to revive it and bring it back to life.
I
And
agree.
what that is that what?
That's the one from status, right?
That is closed at the moment. It's network policy, versioning, and status.
Yeah.
And I think it just closed because it timed out. It goes back to last November. I mean, there was pretty good discussion for a while in history. And the thinking here, I guess, is, and I'm a little new in this group, like about a week, is that with all the different CNI implementers, it's kind of hard to be able to tell if you just, like, for example, log into a cluster, who implements what version of the network policy. So to get some kind of upstream, and Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, to get some kind of upstream commonality, the idea is to have a versioning status, which would, so you would know, which CNI was implementing what in a particular cluster. And there could potentially be two CNIs, but let's even assume one.
So this is a muddled CAP. First of all, there's two problems here. There's network policy versioning, which is one, and then there's a status field, which is two. At its simplest form, a status field for network policy would signal, does the CNI have the correct flows programmed for this network policy? That's a totally different problem from like the versioning aspect of it.
Well, they're in the same CAP. And the thing but the problem with the versioning is spelled out in the CAP, is that since it's third-party CNIs implementing network policy, there's no real way to version it. But what I'm trying to figure out then is exactly what does the status refer to? If
That's
there's
hard.
no version.
That's the hard question.
Say the status is yes, I implement it, but what's it? V2, V1?
Oh, for this, it would just be the existing network policy. So V1. This would be an augmentation to network policy V1. Now, the hard question is, what does enforced mean? Does that mean like across, how can you generalize that across CNIs? Some CNIs, it may mean the IP tables rules are there. Other CNIs, it may mean the OVS flows are programmed correctly. Now, there's some conversation on that CAP around like how can you say that a network policy is applied correctly if you have a network policy that touches pods, but then the pods change? Like there's some weird scenarios there. And, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, but the question is, if it's the CNI's responsibility to implement the network policy, the responsibility here is just to say whether they claim to have implemented it or not. And there could be some messiness around exactly what that means.
Yeah.
But we can't, at this point, we can't dig into what the mechanism of implementation is because that's specific to the CNI, right?
Right. So we have to somehow, if this was ever going to work. So the reason we brought status back up in this meeting was there were some calls for it in a couple different places. But, there's also a lot of argument against having it. So really, I would wanted someone to kind of dig into it and say, is a status field possible as an upstream feature?
So we're not even at the point of discussing exactly where the status field is going to go in the API. And
it would
the,
go as part of the network policy V1, right?
Right, but we don't know what the syntax is, right?
No, it could be anything.
Yeah.
So this is the discussion that should be made, Tom. It's actually what is a network policy status? Like a node status is like if the node is ready, if the kubelet is ready, and if it's under pressure or not, right? So the network policy, it's the same thing of I will use Ingress as an example. Okay, I don't know if Ingress got its status. I guess it does, and the only status that Ingress gets, I might be wrong, but that's the external IP of that Ingress. But somehow what adds that status is the Ingress controller. So if you create an Ingress controller that doesn't feed back the API with that information is going to be empty, blank. So in my opinion, I think that status is important. It was asked in a CAP for me, like, yeah, so how can you say that network policy was programmed correctly or not, or that the CNI understood that correctly or not? So one thing that we should probably make with that CAP is split that in two and say, okay, hey, now we need to add status field in network policy, but we need to figure out with the CNI providers what they understand as a status, because this was an ask from the production readiness review. So we are trying to figure out how to deal with that. But what do we need to add into that? So as an example, Abhishek, what do you think that Antria should provide as an status for network policy V1? Is there some information that Antria controller can provide back to the user as a status, for example? And we should bring back that as a CAP.
So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I think, and in Antria, we already have a status field to the extended network policy objects. I'm sure the other CNI providers probably also have something on similar lines. From what I see, in a network policy, what do you want? You want certain rules to be realized. You have a set of rules, and the status could be whether those rules were realized correctly or not. Now, one of the things that makes it harder for us to kind of give a status at that granularity is because you cannot uniquely identify a rule within a network policy. So there is no rule identifier for it. So the best bet is, if you look at the policy object as is, you tell the user that the network policy was on a whole was not realized correctly, and you can give some sort of a feedback, like in a message format. But then, if we are able to add unique identifiers to network policy rules, which I think should not be that difficult, if we are able to do that, then we can give a more granular answer to the user query, and then we can build on top of that. And then there are other things also that you can give, like for example, a bit of stats and metrics. What kind of packets were dropped because of this rule, what kind of packets were allowed because of this rule, and that's a bit more advanced use cases for network policy, and that's something that we can also do. But provided that we can give some sort of ID to a rule. So I think we can certainly do that, and it's not something that would break anything, and it will be valuable to users. At least we find that it's valuable for our users. So I think it's something that we should think about, and then kind of decouple it from versioning, because I think versioning itself has a lot of pushback maybe. And it's probably not as clear as what Dan wants to convey. So maybe if we can split those two into separate keps and work
Yeah, I
on
saw, maybe it was yours. I saw a comment in the history to that effect. To me, it's hard to understand how you would, I mean, I'm just gonna try to be like a objective broker here, because I understand there's going to be many people who are connected with organizations that are actively creating competing CNIs for Kubernetes. But is there something, would it be easier to get some, at least the concept accepted if it was just, I don't know, at what point, in other words, there's a lot of detail in what you said, and it could go on forever before we got agreement if the KEP, well, maybe that's what we want though. Maybe we do want to specify exactly what that status entails and elaborate the policy, or do we just want to say people agree that there should be a status, even though we don't really exactly know what component of the policy the status is and whether the status means it's completely implemented, all nodes supported, or what?
I think on a high level, I probably think that everyone would agree that status would be something very helpful to at least give the user some sort of feedback. Now, what the status would look like, that's something that maybe we can iterate over the KEP and see.
Yeah.
And that's something that I can also provide some inputs, because we have some experience with it. And anyone on this call who also has some experience can also provide that input. Any user of network policy would want to see if they want to see some sort of information, more granular details, they should also provide that input. But I can definitely help out here, at least in terms of what we can show in the status.
Yeah, and I think we should start with some user stories, Tom. I know, like Dan, I talked to Dan briefly about it the other day, and he said he dropped this because the main user story he started with was being basically, he wanted a network policy status so that E2E tests could know for sure when a particular test is supposed to be in effect.
That's what caught my idea. That seemed kind of pragmatic and sensible place to start too.
Right, but that proved to be a hard use case to fully answer with a status field because of those weird scenarios. So say there are E2E test cases where you do something like create pod and then create network policy that doesn't match your pod, and then you modify the pod's labels to match network policy. So there's some weird hairpins or like weird corner cases that are hard to cover with a status field. But my point was there's more user stories than just being able to fix E2E tests. Like the cluster admin wants to be able to see that CNI has implemented the status. So maybe we start there, see if we can kind of like what we're doing with all these new objects. It's start with some user stories, get the community to agree, and then from those user stories you can determine the best way forward.
Then okay, I could resubmit this, and then we could I could just start with it exactly the way it is, and then as the discussions build, we could add the user stories. I don't know.
Have enough. Can we open that, Tom?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I might start by doing what we've been doing for CMP, which is why don't you just go ahead and get some user stories created in Network Policy API, and then we'll get some feedback there, and you can move forward with a V2 of the KEP from the response there rather than like jumping straight to the KEP and having to go back and analyze the user stories. I don't know. That just seems like the workflow we're doing now across objects. It might be easier to maintain, but.
Tom, I pasted a issue from Entria, which was related to the status for our policies. It has some description on how we have enforced it or how we have solved that. So, maybe you can just take a look at it and see if that helps you version out your status term.
Could you please post that somewhere, or is that?
It's on the chat Slack. Oh, sorry, Zoom.
Oh, I see right in front of me. Okay, this chat. Yeah.
I put it in the agenda too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Tom and Andrew and Abhishek, I think, status field is important. So, each CNI might have their own way of, realizing the network policy. Some might use, rules and, whatever Abhishek mentioned, some might use the other things, right? So do you see a case that like, maybe we give a opaque, one is the transparent, right? I mean, I agree that, it has to be crisp and, what each status error, I mean, let's say status field means. But you could also have opaque information where CNIs can, inject their, their own things basically, which, doesn't come under.
That like vendor specific field in the status. And so like, well, and one would think that if they had, say, for example, Cilium running here, they, on their pod, they would know it's running and maybe go check additional status, or if it's someone else's CNI, but it might be, we may never get done if we try to incorporate all the different kinds of things that can come from every CNI.
No, definitely
exactly. Yeah.
But I like your idea of it sort of having an opaque vendor specific kind of field or information. I don't know, but maybe others won't agree to that. It just seems easier to agree to.
I think you're totally on the right track. I would go investigate deeper into like existing status fields around Kubernetes and maybe see if you can find some prior work, and then start thinking about user stories, and then from there be able to take what you've learned and maybe rework the KEP. But I think you're on the right track, and obviously thanks for working on this. This is awesome.
I didn't do anything yet. I mean, just trying to understand the issues.
No, definitely. There's a lot of.
We trust you, Tom. We trust you to have the status. I'm gonna just announce on the Slack channel we are gonna work with that, and we are gonna have this in the next 2 days.
No, but it's good someone's picking this up. So as you keep going, feel free to ping us in the channel, and we'll keep talking about it.
Sorry for using up so much bandwidth in the meeting, but
no,
everybody was here and I could, bring it up instead of.
No, it was good. We're still ending early.
I call it efficient use of time, your time.
Yeah, agreed.
Like that's what the meetings are for.
Yeah.
But thank you for the perspective. Now I see why it just timed out. It wasn't because you didn't have time to pursue it. It was,
It was a little bit of time. It was a little bit of, I think Dan was just kind of over the bantering on it, which happens sometimes with KEPs. So anyway, cool. Well, thanks, Tom, again. And does anyone have anything else they want to bring up? And on that note, awesome. Well, short meeting today. We'll give everyone 30 minutes back. Remember those 3 things we want to start processing. Now we have even more stuff to talk about every week, which is awesome. So thanks for joining today, and feel free to add stuff to the agenda for next week. And otherwise, have a good week, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Folks, have a nice week.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.